Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Blockchain Security with Rose Law Group. In this series, we'll be having conversations about security and smart contracts. What does it mean? Why is it so important? And how to protect yourself and your customers or your users. In this first episode, we'll be talking about smart contract auditing. Think of it kind of like a smart contract auditing 101. It'll be a casual conversation, but I think you'll see that smart contract auditing is not that casual. In fact, it's very serious, especially considering the massive exploits we've seen over the last few years. To start, my name is Omar Abdallah. I'm a Web3 lawyer at Rose Law Group in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I represent founders in Web3. So that includes founders of NFT projects, collections, NFT marketplaces, DeFi projects, metaverse projects, and more. And I often work with our blockchain developer, Will, who's on here with me. Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Wael, and I'm a blockchain developer at Rose Law Group. I'm specializing in writing, developing, auditing smart contracts, and as well as building decentralized application. I joined Rose Law Group a few months ago, and since then I've worked with Omar on several projects for our clients, ranging from NFTs to DeFi.
Right. So we've been working on a lot of really interesting projects together in Web3, and it's been quite fun. Well, a few months ago, I was at NFT LA in Los Angeles, and a speaker there said that in the future, lawyers and blockchain developers will be working together. And it seems like we're kind of already doing that, right?
Yeah.
Some people might be wondering, like, why is it that a lawyer and a blockchain developer would be working together? So like these smart contracts that you write, they're not actually like legal contract language that I might be writing as a lawyer. Are smart contracts like programming language? Like, can you tell us what smart contracts are?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a smart contract is a self-executed program stored on the blockchain that runs when a predetermined conditions are met. So for example, on the Ethereum blockchain, we can literally send a bunch of Ether to a computer program. And once we have done that, the computer program has itself the ability to control where the money goes without any intermediary involvement. So the computer program has the control of the assets, where this asset should go and to who, and if there is any conditions inside the code that tell to the code what to do, so the assets stays there inside the smart contract. So there are several programming language with who we can write smart contract. I'm gonna mention Solidity is one of the best and the most famous programming language of writing smart contracts. We have Viper, we have Rust for Solana. So this is the general idea of a smart contract, in my opinion.
So there are a few keywords there that stood out to me that you mentioned, and they're decentralization and self-executing and intermediary. And so that reminds me a little bit, and let me know your thoughts, but that makes me think a little bit about, our banking system, traditional banking, credit card processing, even the stock market, and all of those industries or all of those areas, you have a middleman of some kind, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The middleman is facilitating the transactions that are taking place. They're handling them. And so when you buy a stock, you have a buyer of that stock, you have the seller of that stock. But then in the middle, there is a clearinghouse of some kind that basically takes the money from one hand, takes the stock from one hand, and processes that transaction. And I think the same is the case with, banking and making payments. You have the bank that's sitting there in the middle and is facilitating that change in ownership. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like, with smart contracts, you can remove that middleman, that intermediary. and you can create a situation where this transaction can occur automatically. Is that what you're saying? That there doesn't need to be a middleman there who's kind of, meddling their hands in the mix?
Absolutely. So this is what is interesting about smart contract and blockchain technology in general. So for banking, for example, we need this central institution who controls everything, and sometimes we don't own our we don't own our own data. For example, for Facebook, you sign up for free. They are controlling your data. They use it for marketing, for example, for Twitter, for YouTube. But for blockchain, we can create these technologies where we can be the owners of our own data, and everything is transparent, and we can control our own data, our own assets without any involvement from any central company or institutions.
And that's really interesting because, with this new technology and the new features that come along with it, we've seen a lot of it brings with it new opportunities for different kinds of businesses and different kinds of frameworks for startups, which is why we've seen a lot of really interesting concepts with NFTs and payment systems using crypto and, marketplaces and DeFi and all of that. And so obviously, these smart contracts, they're super important. We've seen with our clients, they're the backbone of the blockchain-based startups that they're creating. And so it's the infrastructure that sits there on the back end that facilitates the transfer of digital assets between people. So that could be NFTs, cryptocurrency payments, and whatnot. And so, we know, like, traditionally, at least with Web 2 code, that if you find a bug in the code, you can kind of just push an update, right? You push an update to correct that code. And then all of a sudden, whatever was going on is fixed, it's resolved.
Yeah.
So, I've been seeing a lot in the news, like, why is it that we keep seeing Web3 projects get exploited for tens of millions of dollars? Like, why can't they just fix the bug and go on as usual?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. And I think the reason why we have seen projects get exploited for $10 million and sometimes more, it's first of all because smart contracts are immutable. Immutable means that once smart contract is deployed on the blockchain, the code cannot be changed. That means that if there is any mistake in the code, that mistake will be permanent. Versus Web 2, like you mentioned, we can always fix bugs and errors. Secondly, nowadays, many Web3 projects try to create a new application within blockchain technology that haven't been tested yet or have not been audited correctly, which makes the code an easy target for malicious hacks from hackers. That's why it's very important to have your smart contract audited correctly before deployment.
And that leads exactly to my next question. So, obviously, as a lawyer, I work with these Web3 startups, so NFT collections, marketplaces, metaverse projects, and similar. And my job as a lawyer is to protect them against liability. And so, I do that by reviewing their contracts, by reviewing what they're doing. We do like a legal analysis. We want to make sure they're compliant and up to date with the law, which is constantly changing, especially in this new space. Securities laws, is one of the most important topics these days. And so that's what I do to help reduce their liability. Now, when it comes to their smart contracts, which is the back-end infrastructure, it's responsible for handling the transactions or the transfer of digital assets. And, it involves the assets of their users. Is there any way, and it sounds like maybe smart contract auditing is the way, but is there any way that these founders can protect themselves or make it less likely that they could be exploited or vulnerable?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we're going to talk about smart contract auditing. So smart contract auditing is the process where an auditor or ethical hacker reviews the code of crypto or blockchain projects in order to check for security issues, bugs, and errors that could expose the system or its users. So ultimately leading to loss of a lot of funds. So this is like in real life, this is like testing a bridge before it opens to the public. So a single loose cable can lead to catastrophic failure. So I just want to mention it again. It's so important to audit smart contracts before deployments and on the blockchain.
And I like that you called it ethical hacking. Is that kind of like a mindset that you have when you're doing your smart contract audits? Like, do you have to pretend that you're an ethical hacker?
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you as an auditor or as a blockchain developer, if you don't have that mentality, we can't find vulnerabilities. So the job is to find vulnerabilities in the code to try to hack the smart contracts in some ways or in other ways based on the project, the complexity of the project, the size of the project, and we provide the auditing reports back to the clients to show them that, hey, we can hack your smart contracts, but you should fix these errors or vulnerabilities before deploy the smart contract on the blockchain. So yeah, absolutely. We always have this mentality of how to hack the smart contracts.
Yeah. And so as a blockchain developer, you're regularly writing various smart contracts. And so when you review someone else's smart contracts, you're a second pair of eyes, basically. You're a third party that's coming in, you're reading their smart contract as if you were the one writing it, or even as if you were trying to hack it, so that you can find vulnerabilities, weaknesses, pinpoint issues in the code where you can exploit them and potentially do what? Like, can hackers drain the assets that are in smart contracts? Like, what are the risks there of being exploited?
Well, absolutely. So the risk is, of course, to drain the smart contracts from hacks, but also sometimes the funds can be locked inside the smart contract just by sending a transaction to this smart contract in order to lock the funds, and sometimes $100 million worth of cryptocurrency. Or there are a lot of type of hacks that's happened in the past that we can make another episode about these hacks. It's very important to talk about them too, but sometimes there is also other details that we check inside the smart contract. Smart contracts, is that if the smart contract is respecting the best practice, Solidity best practice, or Ethereum virtual machine best practice, and so on.
Okay, so by best practices, are you saying that when you're reviewing the code, not only are you finding vulnerabilities, but you can also find places for improvements where you can improve the code or make it more efficient?
Exactly. So we have a list of that every smart contract should do a checkbox. So if not, we can improve the best practice or the code that exists inside the smart contract, and sometimes can be even a mistake inside the comments. For example, a function should be the role of the function is to mint, for example, but the developer wrote something like transferring assets from smart contract to another one, and this can be a problem later because it's not correct what the function has to do, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes we can also improve.
You mentioned earlier that there are different types of exploits that could take place, or different types of vulnerabilities, and a couple of them is the smart contracts can be drained, or even the funds in there can be locked. Of course, would be really terrible for a founder who thinks his project is very successful and then all of a sudden can't withdraw the funds. But are there any smart contract exploits or protocol exploits that have recently been in the news? And I know there are a lot, but are there any lines that you can think of right now?
Yeah, one of the biggest hacks happened just recently from a blockchain protocol bridge called a Nomad. So a value of $190 million worth of crypto was drained from that protocol. It's huge. It's a lot of money because of error inside the smart contracts. So only an error inside the smart contract.
Do you know whose funds are these? Are these users' funds, or are they the platform's funds, or could it be both?
Could be both. I don't have specific data about this question, but I would say both.
Yeah, either way, $190 million is an extreme amount of money.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to lose that. And so, should they have gotten a smart contract audit? Did they get audited? What do you know?
So, yeah, like the what is very interesting about this type of hacks, that this protocol, of course, like they have their protocol audited from the experts of auditing smart contracts. But still, we have hackers out there waiting for the opportunity to find bugs and errors inside small projects or big projects. So that's why, like, no matter what, no matter the size of the projects, it should be audited. It's very important because at least it lowers the risk of not getting any problem in this way.
And I would imagine that there are so many projects out there that are not getting smart contract audits, and they're vulnerable to being hacked at any time, right? And so
I agree.
Is it like, are there projects out there that have had a smart contract audit report completed, and that report found some really obvious vulnerabilities that should have been corrected, and maybe because they didn't get an audit, they were exposed, and that simple audit could have saved them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of projects that's had that issues. For example, recently when Luna they have this problem. So used as a stable coin, they had this problem, and users were questioning all stable coins in the markets. So what USDT as a stable coin did, that they had another auditing report from CertTech to show the user that we have no problem with our protocol and you are safe with us. So in my personal opinion, it's every single Web3 project has to audit its smart contracts. It's crucial, first for reputation and to build trust around the project, its community, and secondly to protect users' funds.
Yeah, and those last 2 points that you made, I relate to those, greatly, because working with a lot of Web3 startups, one of the main issues is onboarding. Like, how can they bring the masses in to use their interfaces and their projects that they're developing? And so, by now we have a really great Web3 ecosystem and Web3 community, but how do we continue to grow that community? And it's very difficult to grow that community if we have these exploits constantly taking place, because it really doesn't give users the confidence to experiment and try them out if they have to live in fear knowing that their funds might be stolen. And so,
Absolutely.
what I'm learning from you is that a smart contract audit is a very obvious answer, or at least potential solution, to finding those vulnerabilities in your smart contract code, which, really should be and can be resolved. You just need a second pair of eyes, someone that's experienced like yourself, who can identify those issues, make recommendations, and help you.
Exactly.
So, well, kind of just to summarize the conversation that we had today,
Yeah.
I think we both agree that blockchain technology and smart contracts is revolutionary, right?
Yes.
It changes the game entirely. It brings with it a lot of new opportunities for business. But at the same time, while there are some increased efficiencies and improvements in saving costs by, taking out that intermediary, that middleman, there are risks, and you can reduce those risks by having a blockchain developer, a smart contract auditor such as yourself, review those smart contracts and prepare a comprehensive report. So I think you'd agree with that. Do you have any final thoughts before we hop off?
Yeah, I totally agree what you said. And smart contract auditing is a process where we really review smart contracts line by line, check all the functionalities that's linked to transferring funds, protecting users, and also as a smart contract auditor. In my personal opinion, each smart contract should also respect the best practices that we have within the blockchain technology, and based on the programming language, for example, Solidity or Viper, to keep this space safe. And yeah, we're here to secure Web3 word, and we will do it all together.
Great. Well, thanks for getting on with me and teaching us more about what you do. In the future, we'll have some more conversations about smart contract auditing, current events, how people can protect themselves, best practices. I think today was a good starting point, and we hope that our viewers will follow along. Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
See you.